Hey guys, we're continuing our look at 1 Timothy 4:12 this week in this series that I'm calling Own It. An opportunity for you during this time frame to really own your faith, for it to stop being your parents' faith and it to start being yours. And really want to encourage you to dive into the Word, to just thirst for God. And so that's the basis of why we are doing this series. So once again, let's look at 1 Timothy 4, verse 12, and it says, "Let no one despise you because of your youth, but set the believers an example in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." Paul is challenging Timothy to own his faith, for it to stop being his parents' religion, for it to stop being the religion that everyone has handed down to him, and to be something that he truly just grabs a hold of, and is something that is his. And last week we looked at this idea of setting an example in speech. This week, let's look at this idea of setting an example with your conduct, setting an example with how you live your life, with the way that you go through life, with the way that you live a day-to-day basis. And I just want to start with this. It's funny that we started last week with speech. Your speech equals your actions. You've heard it said, actions speak louder than words. Your speech is only as good as the actions that back them up. You can say that you love the Lord, but until your actions back them up, your speech is meaningless. And James talks about this in James chapter 2, verse 18. And he says, "But someone will say to you, 'You have faith and I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. I will show you what I believe through what I do. I will show you who I serve by my actions. I will show you what I believe in by the way that I walk through life." And that's one of the things that I want us to grab a hold of today in these next couple of minutes, is this idea that how we live our lives is important because it points to something. And so as we look at this idea of our actions pointing to Christ, you've heard me talk over and over and over about if we keep the first two commandments, everything else will fall into place from there. Well, let's look at the last 6 commandments real quick that deal with our actions. One of the first one we'll look at is this idea that we should not take the Lord's name in vain. And so what does this mean when it comes to our actions? I think it's a very simple thing, is we are to not be hypocritical. We are to not claim that we are followers of Christ and then not live that way. Throughout the Sermon on the Mount, and we'll dive into these in the next couple, Jesus takes these concepts, these 10 commandments, and he not expounds upon them, but he goes in deeper. Not just this, oh, we're not supposed to kill, which is the next one. He says we're not supposed to have anger towards people. If we're not supposed to have anger towards people, what are we supposed to have towards people? We're supposed to show them kindness. We're supposed to show them love. Jesus says that he talks to his followers and says, man, when I was in prison, you visited me. When I didn't have any clothes, you gave me clothes. When I was thirsty, you gave me a drink. And they said, when did we do all of this stuff? And Jesus says, when you did them to the least, you did them for me. So this idea of that we're not supposed to kill people doesn't start with taking someone's life. It starts with the attitude that we have towards people. It starts with the actions that we show other people, that we're not to commit adultery. And this is an idea, not just the physical act of adultery, but the lust in your heart, controlling who you are, putting yourself in situations that you will glorify God instead of glorify your sinful nature. It tells us that we're not supposed to steal. We're supposed to show other people's property respect. We're not supposed to take from them. We're not supposed to just casually treat other people's property as if it's not our own. We need to respect that. Our actions, it says we're not to bear false witness. I think this is key. Jesus says that our yeses are to be yes and our nos are to be no. And I think that this is an idea of integrity. And I think when I think of the idea of setting an example with your conduct, with your life, it's an idea of integrity. It's be who you are. Serve the Lord even when it hurts. Serve the Lord even when it doesn't benefit you. Be someone who is a stand-up righteous person who does what is right, period. Don't bear false witness. Let your yeses be yeses and your noes be noes. And then the last commandment is do not covet. I think the idea of wanting something that our neighbors have is not showing them love, is not showing them kindness, is not showing them compassion. And when we want what they have, we begin to hate them. And then that goes back to the idea that you're not supposed to murder, you're not supposed to kill, you're not supposed to have anger in your heart towards people. And I think that this is a very simple concept, but it may be difficult to execute in our lives. But we are called that our actions are to match up with our words. And if we claim that we follow Jesus, then our actions need to match up with that. And for our actions to match up with that, we have to do different things like thirsting after Christ, knowing who he is, knowing how he reacted, knowing what he taught, knowing what he thinks, seeing people from the way that he sees them. When we begin to do these things, our actions begin to look like those of Jesus Christ. Well, guys, I pray that's what we would do, is we would set an example with our conduct, how we treat people, the way we react to things. That people would look at us and ultimately see our Savior, Jesus Christ. Man, once again, I hope to see you guys soon, and I hope that we get to meet very soon. You guys have a good week.